Today we're doing a little bit of a reference video to the new scheduling program and labor contract that bakeries will be getting this period. The ultimate goal is going forward in week one of every period. We'll be starting this and completing this and finalizing it by the end of week one of every period for the following period. That way, once you start doing schedules for the following period, that labor contract is done, finalized, and you have all the information that you need to make a smart schedule. So, starting with that, basically what I'm going to have here is a labor contract guide. It gives you kind of a step-by-step process on how to fill out the labor contract. It also gives you some math references as far as how to create, guest check average, or project a guest check average, project a sales projection, and things like that. Very general information, but at least some good math to refer to. So starting with this, first step, simple steps. Input the bakery name and number, corresponding period, and hours of operation. So with that, this would be your blank labor contract. This is what you'll see when you get a schedule. Your area manager will be emailing you out a blank schedule every week one of every period, along with a labor hour budget, which you guys should have all seen something like this recently, that shows what your sales were last year for week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4, along with your period total and your average. Same thing with your hours, so the amount of hours that we used week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and the period average hours as well. So you have some information to work with. But again, the first step is putting in your bakery information. So in this video, we're going to be doing Bushnell's Basin in Rochester as a example. So we're going to type in, basin number 175, and this is going to be for period 6. The next step was to input hours of operation. Now, every bakery in the company opens at the same time at 6 a.m. It's just the closing times differentiate between bakeries. So in this case, the closing time is 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 5 p.m. on the weekends. You'll notice some highlighted areas. Basically, to kind of simplify this process, anything that's highlighted in a little bit of a gray hue is the information that you actually have to fill in to kind of make things simple for you. So now that we've done that, the next step is to start inputting some data entry, net sales from last year. And as you can see, we have last year week 1, last year week 2, last year week 4, 3 and 4. So what you'll have to do is go into accounting calendars. If you don't have an accounting calendar, you're going to want to reach out to your area manager to send you one. Really, we should all have last year, which is 2016, something we could reference to, as well as this year, 2017's calendar. In this case, we're looking at last year's numbers. So we reference to this to find what period 6 of last year, what dates that fell on. So looks like week 1 was May 18th to May 24th, week 2 May 25th to May 31st, week 3 was June 1st to June 7th, and week 4 was June 8th to June 14th. So that's some good information to have. What you're going to need to do is get the sales details from those particular date ranges, one for each week. You should have them already printed out, ready to go in your Remax binder, because we should have a year's completed sales details on file. If for some reason you don't, You could always go into Remax in your back of the house computer and run the sales detail reports from there and print them out. But it's important you have these days so you know that you're doing the right thing. So with that, you can see here, this is what you'll get. You'll get a basically a sales detail report. And what we need to do is we need to figure out the net sales and guest check average. So the information you're going to need off of these sales detail reports, this in case would be week 1, is your net sales for each individual day, along with, we'll get to it, but your customer count as well for the week. So one note, when you're inputting these numbers off of your sales details, you're writing them in exactly how they appear on your sales detail. So if I was writing in Wednesday here, the first day of the period, I'm going to write 2271.61. You'll notice that it basically will round up for you, but if you look up here in the top box, it's actually in there as the real number. You're going to do that each individual day, so that your total for the week matches up exactly what the total for the week should be. So basically you're going to go through and do that data entry. Just do the net sales at first. Get your net sales in there for every single day of the period of last year. You should have 4 sales details reports. This one would be week 1. This would be week 2. This would be week 3. And this would be week 4. So just to save some time, we're going to move along as if that was done. So this is what you'll be looking at. Once you have all that information in, it'll automatically generate your total for the week. It'll also, for each individual week, it'll also give you averages for your 4-week average for the period of last year of what you did on a Wednesday, on a Thursday, Friday, etc. Going up to what you did for your weekly average for the period as well. So it's some good information to have, especially when we're looking at projections and things like that. So the next step is to get your guest check average, and going back to this, your guest check average from a math perspective is your net sales divided by your customer count. So going into week 1, we'll have to go back to your sales details. If we're saying net sales divided by customer count, we would have net sales here and customer count down here. So it would be, you could you could use a calculator and manually write these numbers in. That's perfectly fine. What I'm going to do is give you an example of how you could do this on the actual Excel sheet, because Excel is actually supposed to be a calculator. The difference being, on a calculator you write 2 plus 2 equals this number, whereas on Excel it always starts with the equals. So it would be equals 2 plus 2 from an Excel standpoint. So you're always starting the formula out with an equals number, equals sign for Excel. So again, you could either use the calculator and go 18960.5 divided by 2317 to get your number and type the number in, or you can simply just write equals 18960.5 divided by the 2317, and you would get your number there. So again, it would do the math for you. Another simple way to do it is, you have these grids on Excel where you have, in this case, if I was looking at this number, it would be I-12, right? So being that you already have the net sales inputted on here, you can save yourself from having to write this part of the formula, and basically write, this guest check average would equal, and then click on the cell, and you see it comes in as I-12 divided by 2317, which is my customer count, and you'd get the same thing. So there's 3 different options to do. For me, Excel's this is probably the easiest way. If I'm going on to week number 2, looking at my customer count of week number 2, it's 2390. So again, net sales divided by your customer count. And being that I have my net sales on here already, just basically going to write equals my net sales for that week divided by 2390. And there we go. Moving on to week number 3. Again, it's net sales divided by customer count. Customer count was 2490 for this week. So equals. I'm going to click on this cell for the net sales. 2490. And press enter to set it in place. Now for week 4, same thing. So equals my net sales, click on that, divided by 2782, the customer count, and then enter. There you go. So now you actually have your guest check average for each individual week, along with your average guest check average for the entire period right here. So now you have some good information to have. The next step is getting into projections. So projections for guest check average is really probably the simplest part of projections. We are doing the 10-cent challenge every single period, something we've been doing a really good job at so far. So if 10-cent challenge is what our goal is, you should be projecting a minimum of a 10-cent increase over last year's guest check average. So if that was the case, $7.90 plus 10 cents would be $8. So simply put, $8 is my goal and my projection for 2017. So you actually got that information now. Next step is getting your net sales projections. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, and always feel free to reach out to your area manager for a little help with this. But I do have some math equations here to help you. The biggest thing is it should be based off of your most recent sales trends. So if you're up 5%, you should be projecting somewhere close to being up 5%. If year to date you're down 5%, then you should be projecting down 5%. So it's really focusing on your most recent current sales trends for the year, and figuring out your projections from there. So one simple note too is, in this case, you're having, if you're going off a percentage, you have to do the math, you have to translate your percentage into a number. So there's some examples here. Simply put, if you're translating your percentage to a number, you move the decimal point to the left 2 spaces. So if 100%, basically the decimal point would be here. I'm moving it 2 spaces, it equals 1. 75%, decimal points here, I'm moving it 2 spaces to the left, it equals 0.75, and so on and so forth down here. If it's 5%, I'm moving it 2, so it would actually be 0.05. So you get your number based off the percentage that you're looking for. And then this kind of gives you an idea of, if you're increasing your projections, this would be the formula that you would want to have in there. Last year's average sales times your percent increase, which would be this number, not the actual percent, but the 0.1 or the 1.0 or the 0.75, plus last year's average net sales. And then if you're decreasing, basically your last year average sales minus your average sales times the percent decrease. So a simple way to put it. You guys should be getting every week and every month, you're getting those weekly breakdowns, labor productivity breakdowns that tell you how much, from a percentage perspective, you're up in sales, year to date, week to date, whatever it may be. You guys should all have that general knowledge of where you're at in sales, as we focus on sales and things like that, to get your projection. So with this, in week through period 3 of this year, Bushnell's Basin was up around 13.9%. So we'll say 13%, just for a simple number, simplicity reasons. In period 4, they were up 15%. So with this, we're going to be safe. Always be safe with your projections. I mean, 15% is a great number, great accomplishment, but let's not make that the standard, because if we don't hit that standard, it can be, a little bit demoralizing. You want to make realistic goals and things for yourself so that you can hit them. If we do hit 15% increase, that'd be phenomenal. But looking at these sales, right now their current sales trend is around 18.9, 18.5 per week, whereas in period 6 we're already going up $1,000 a week minimum in average sales. So with that, it's going to be a little bit harder to increase our sales over last year. So this is where you might need your area manager to help you to figure out what the percentage is. In this case, I spoke with the GM at Bushnell's, and we came across a goal of 10% increase, being that the minimum increase we've had between period 1, 2, 3, and 4 was a 10% increase. So let's go with that minimum and say we're going to be up 10% in sales. So again, going into this sheet here, we're going to be projecting an increase. So last year's average sales, remember these parentheses as well, because that's important, times the percent increase plus the average sales equals your net sales projection. So with that, it's basically equals, and you could do this on a calculator too if you want, but I prefer to do it in the actual Excel spreadsheet. Equals parentheses last year's average sales multiplied by 10%, which translates to 0.1, right? Then another parenthesis, and then we're adding that to last year's net sales. I'm pressing enter. So now this right here, 2725, is a 10% increase projection of the 2478. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to put that formula in each individual day if you're projecting a 10% increase or whatever increase you're projecting. One way, if you do it this way, this is pretty cool. If you actually do it with clicking on the cells and doing it similar to this way, the way that I showed you guys, you can simply right click it, copy, right click the next cell, and paste, and it'll automatically give you the same formula, and then you can do it again basically across the board. Just paste it in there. Just click on the cell, right click, paste, paste. Boom. So now we have a 10% increase per day that we are projecting, and what that does is add up to a 10% increase for the entire week. So our average week last year was this, and our 10% increase average week this year will be this, and along with our guest check average projection. So that's pretty much it from a projecting standpoint. Now going on from there, again, you guys can always refer back to this if you need to, and also call your area manager for that if you need a little bit of guidance or help. The next step is nothing new. We're inputting our labor contract numbers for this particular period, and this is where your hours budget your area manager gives you comes into play, where you have you need a starting point. You need to know what we used in hours last year. So this is week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and your period average. You also need to know your bakery. So in this case, last year, I know that Bushnell's Basin's drive-through was down for this particular period. That said, I know that automatically I'm going to need to use more hours this year because I'm basically adding another position. Someone needs to work that drive-through on a daily basis that we didn't have last year. So that's automatically going to increase our numbers. Along with I'm increasing my sales 10%, so that's another justification of why I'm probably going to, budget for a lot higher, a little bit higher than what we used last year. Be careful with this though. Usually, this is a situation at Bushnell's where I think the drive-through is the biggest driving factor in the fact that we're going to be using more hours. If you're projecting that your bakery is going to be down in sales, it's going to be troublesome to try and increase your hours from last year. You're probably going to need to run a little bit lower in hours than you did last year if your sales are down. If your sales are up, you have a better chance of getting more hours, but again, as area managers, we try to challenge our teams, and we need to make the best decision for the bakery. And it doesn't mean just because we're up 5% doesn't mean we need another 15 hours a week added to the schedule. It's something that you and your area manager should be working out together. All right, so in this case, I did review the labor contract with the general manager, and just to skip ahead to save some time, we came along with this labor contract for the period, and as you can see, it is a considerable increase. It's about 15 extra hours per week that we used last year. However, you got to remember, they need an extra person every single day for drive-through, and on top of that, they're projected to be up 10% in sales. So I think this is a fairly reasonable number for us to get through the week. Okay, so at this point, you would do nothing else. You would save this to your computer and email it to your area manager. You shouldn't be moving on in any other tabs because your area manager should be reviewing this and signing off and saying, yes, this is good to go, or no, let's meet about this next week when I visit, so on and so forth. You should not move on to any more tabs on this until we know that this is completely good to go, signed by the general manager, the assistant, and area manager. So once that is signed and ready to go, the next step, when you're starting to make schedules, before you even get to that point, is a contract breakdown. If you haven't seen this sheet before, your area manager will be reviewing it with you. It's fairly simple the way it works. But basically what we're doing is we're taking our labor contract and we're turning that labor contract into actual shifts per day and assigning those shifts to particular positions. So, it's a lot easier to look at something like this with actual shifts on it versus trying to schedule based off of this. And if you do this part accurately, you can guarantee that when you're making a schedule using this, you will be scheduling exactly the way your labor contract lays it out for you. So that would be the next step. The cool thing about this is you obviously put all your information. You do a lot of work up front. What it does is it pulls your bakery name and number, the period, into all the other tabs as well for you, so you don't have to write them again. Your name will be on your availability sheet and all your schedules as well. And then going into the week, when you get to the point where you would want to transfer your availability, your most recent availability, into this sheet. So that's your availability, and a simple way to do it would be to copy. Let's say this was period 5 schedule program that you're using. You can go in and copy all that stuff, right click it, copy it, and come into this file and click on the same top left cell and press enter, and it would all show up, so you don't have to type it all again. And then week 1, you'll see you just have to put in the first date of the period, which again, going back into your 2017 calendar, that's where this comes into play. You know that the first day of the period is May 17th. So you type in May 17th, and the cool thing is, again, the schedule program does all the work for you. That's the only date you have to write in. Everything else is in there for you. The second cool thing is this bottom part you no longer have to do anything with. It directly pulls last year's sales from your labor contract, and it directly pulls your projections, your labor budget, and your guest check average projection from that labor contract for each individual week. So once you get to these scheduling, the scheduling part of it, all you're really worried about is the actual schedule. So it should save you some time at that point. I mean, that's pretty much it for this. Hopefully this video will help you guys. And again, if you have any issues or questions or anything like that, you can reach out to your area manager. And good luck. Thank you.